Hello and welcome to the Financial Wellness Hour. I am your host, Hirsch Serman, and I am so happy you're joining us today on WGSN-DB, the Going Solo Network. This show is for those who are wanting to learn a little bit more about creating financial wellness, and we're going to look at different life cycles. We're going to explore them both financially and emotionally, because personal finances are usually not about the money, but more about the emotions associated with your finances. And if we are healthy emotionally, we do tend to make more sound financial decisions and better decisions in general. We'd love to make it more relevant because our discussion is going to be somewhat general. So please do reach out and make it more relevant and more personal. You can reach me through my website, lifecycle.financial. That's lifecycle.financial. Or you can post your comments and your questions on Facebook, YouTube, or any of the other platforms you might be looking and watching us. Talking about personal, let's talk a little bit about our kids. We tend to love them pretty unconditionally. There's nothing we wouldn't do for them. We want the best for them in every way. But unfortunately, sometimes our spouse doesn't always feel the same way as we do. In fact, too often our kids are used as a pawn or maybe even a weapon against us when we're going through a divorce and even beyond the divorce. As much as we ourselves may not be able to fathom how somebody could do that to their kids, it's a reality that many people are facing. And it's frustrating, and it can derail any efforts that we have in coming to a settlement. Learning how to deal with this effectively can lower our stress, improve our outcomes. It can be very beneficial. I am excited that Tracy Malone is joining us today. Tracy is the founder of Narcissist Abuse Support. I do actually want to quote, Tracy sent out an email, I'm guessing about an hour ago, so this is hot off the press, which I thought was incredibly powerful. And she wrote, this is just a few lines from the intro. She wrote, "When you've been in a relationship with a narcissist, the impact of their abuse runs deep. Their hurtful words become ingrained in your mind, playing over and over, telling you you're not good enough, not smart enough, not attractive enough." Tracy, I thought these were incredibly powerful. What an opening. If that doesn't grab someone's attention, to read the rest. And I will tell you, I know many of my clients have felt this way. I think you really encapsulated it so well. And it's so important that they understand this kind of situation really is, it's more a reflection on the abuser than the abused. It's not easy for somebody to realize that always. I get that, especially when you've heard that message for years. So we'll talk a little bit about that as we go through the show, I'm sure. Tracy and I are involved in a couple of the same groups as well. One of the big ones is the Domestic Violence Coalition. So I encourage people to look at that, to look at Tracy's website, which we'll be sharing with you. And I will say, I think I said this last time you were on the show, I think you have done more research and more writing and blogging about narcissists and narcissism than probably anyone else I know. So that's amazing. What a wealth of knowledge is really what I'm getting at. Tracy, welcome back to the show. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much for having me and for reading my email this morning.
I do. I do. A lot of people send them out and you kind of wonder, is it hitting home, right, when you're sending out these things? So yes, it is. I thought it was. I thought the whole email was very good, but what a powerful opening. So definitely.
Yeah. Well, it's how everyone feels.
It is.
It
really is.
When you've had these demon voices in your head from being with a narcissist and being told things over and over again, right, it's hard to break out of it. It's hard not to internalize it and believe it for yourself.
100%. Just because they say it doesn't mean it's true. I will point that. But before we get into all the topics, please, I got to back up, I guess, and just get you to introduce your background a little bit, because I think that shares a lot about why do you do what you do, the passion that comes with that, and the drive that you have to educate others.
Sure. So I am a survivor of narcissistic abuse. And when I found out about 8 years ago, I was pretty old, and I couldn't believe no one had ever told me. I'd been going to therapy for years through both of my narcissists, and no one ever said the word. So I was like, you know what? I think we got to educate people. And I just started this website and my YouTube channel, and the rest is history. I have reached about 2 million people a year through my website, which is phenomenal.
Incredible.
And the distance that people find me. I have clients in Dubai. It's crazy, but again, this is a international problem. And so building one of the top resource sites has been a gift to the world and something that is making my heart happy.
And I encourage, it's on the screen now, but it's narcissistabusesupport.com. I do encourage people to go there, especially sometimes, we throw this word narcissist around a lot. And I tell a lot of my clients, just because they're not like clinically a narcissist doesn't mean you're not dealing with narcissist tendencies or actions against you. So maybe it's not, always good to throw that word around. I mean, 50% of people getting divorced are not narcissists, but at the same time, it's very real that people are being treated like this, being put down, being named, shamed, whatever you want to call it. So I definitely think, I know you've got some checklists to help people kind of gather their thoughts in that. There's a lot of material. So I do encourage people to go. And I think, especially if you're not 100% sure, or if you think you are, I think one of the things that is so essential is, I'm going to put it as a question maybe, why is it so essential for parents, with a narcissistic spouse, to understand what can happen in the co-parenting relationship post-divorce? And give a little bit about that and thoughts about what they should be thinking about maybe.
Sure. So I think the biggest mistake is people think, okay, I'll divorce this person, male or female, and it'll end. The pain will end. They won't be in our life anymore. It's just going to be safe, right? But we don't understand the malignancy of narcissists. And not all, again, everything's on a spectrum. So you can have someone who's just a little bit nasty and someone who is the devil's spawn, right? And so they are going to now, because you are not their primary supply anymore, they're going to use your children as pawns to continue to hurt you. And they'll turn the kids against you, and everything they did to you, meaning gaslighting and being cruel to them and making them fight for their attention. And if there's more than one child, it's always a battle for, the narcissist's attention. So they're constantly fighting that never feeling good enough thing that you mentioned from my email today, right? So the kids are doing that. And then there's always the post-divorce abuse. We've heard that, right? But with narcissists, that's probably why it was coined. They just don't stop. They're like rabid dogs. And so if we understand what could happen, then we can add protections based on what they're doing now. You see it during the divorce. You've seen it during the relationship. Now we need to go, you know what? We need something stronger as a parenting plan. We need some kind of outline, boundary document that's going to say, this is okay, that's not okay.
Right.
Because if you don't put these footprints in, the narcissist will walk all over you.
They will look for every loophole that they can. And, the phrase co-parenting, I think sometimes is a little bit misunderstood. When people are going through a divorce and they go, oh, now I've got to co-parent with this other person. The truth is we co-parent all the time, even when we're married, right? We are co-parenting. But unfortunately, I think this is often a major contributor to the decline of the marriage, is we couldn't maybe figure it out. And it's a little harder sometimes in a marriage, I think, to set those boundaries sometimes. They don't happen in an instant, right? They do kind of take time sometimes. So leaving it as a status quo, and as you said, thinking, okay, I'm getting divorced, it'll be okay, that's not going to happen. And not gaining the appropriate skills to co-parent after the marriage, I think, is so essential. And one of the things you said there is kind of having that plan that laid out, this is acceptable, this is not. So why and how does a strong narc-proof parenting plan help to stop post-divorce abuse? And how do you kind of put that into place?
Well, first of all, you have to be aware, right? If you don't understand what could happen, you don't know how to protect yourself. And so often, I've studied parenting plans for 3 years now. It became like a passion. And I would review my clients' parenting plans from, a myriad of different lawyers. And in almost every single one of them, the things that the person I was working with, my client, would say, I'm worried that they won't pay their bills. They're not paying now. And that's what scares me. And the lawyer's going, well, don't worry. If they don't pay, you can take them back to court. It's okay. Right. And so it's like there are protections that we can give. Do they work 100% of the time? No, but it's a roadblock. It is just a thing in the middle of the road that now they have to jump over. And if they don't comply, then they are in trouble, right? So, the difference between a normal parenting plan and a NARC parenting plan, like normally it's like you get them Christmas this year, I get them Christmas next year, we'll split birthdays, we'll do this, we'll blah, 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 easy peasy, right? Because you're doing what's in the best interest of the children.
Right.
But the narcissist doesn't do that. So we need strong protection, like, sort of bookending. When does Christmas start? When does it end? I had an example in my book that was a father he was going to get the first Christmas, and he took the kids, but he didn't bring them back for 2 weeks because it didn't say when it started and when it ended, and it was Christmas break. So the mother had to call the police 15 times, and they were like, man, there's nothing we could do. I know it's 5 days later. I know it's 6 days later, but it doesn't say when he has to return them. And so it's those kind of stories that make me go, well, if it said return by 9 a.m. on Christmas Day, then you could call the police and something could be done if they don't comply with the fact that you've nailed down when they're responsible for taking them back. This is a legal boundary document, right? And if we don't understand what to put into it to protect ourselves, we're the ones who are going to be back in court, like my clients being told 4 times by their lawyers, you'll go back, don't worry. That's money for them. They don't want to keep you out of court. I do.
Well, I think you bring up so many things that are crucial for people to kind of really understand. Number one is going back to court, the stress, the money, all of that is so important, but it also takes time. And so if there's an issue, you are prolonging the issue's time frame because there are no parameters. I think too often we don't build those, and we can make them relatively simple. We're going to reconcile expenses once a month by, I'm making up these dates, the 7th day of the following month, reconciling the prior month, and within 5 days, the payment is made, whoever owes the other one money. Done, right? I had a client, similar situation where there wasn't a deadline, and it just kept building. And when they kept approaching them, they said, oh, I'm going to pay it. Don't worry, I'm going to pay it. But it's out of pocket. And now it literally was about 7 months later, and 7 months worth of expenses out of pocket. So I think having those parameters, having things that you can go back to and saying, I didn't see the communication within the 48 hours that we stipulated. I didn't see the payment within the 5 days. Whatever those pieces are very, very important. The other piece is it limits games that people can play when you have those deadlines. I had a client, they were going to get what used to be called alimony, maintenance, and they would get maintenance on the 1st of the month, and the next month, the 31st of the month, and the next one, the 15th of the month. They never knew when that money was coming in, and they were relying on it. And that in itself created enormous stress for the individual who was receiving that, because they never knew, was it going to be a stretch this month? Was I going to have to wait 60 days because of the beginning and the end? They just never knew what was going to happen. And the other piece that I think you said a little bit ago, but I want to reiterate, I think is so important. As a narcissist loses control of you, they grab on anything they can control. And that often is the kids. And that's often playing those games. And that is just putting the kids in the middle. It's so unhealthy. For the whole dynamic is so unhealthy.
Yeah, absolutely. And what you just said about like not paying your client and not getting that support reliably on the date you were supposed to get it, it means you can't pay your bills and your
Correct.
electric bill is being, on hold, and, all of the things that you need to pay for the children. Well, sorry, kids, we can't pay for camp because the money isn't here yet and it's 7 months late, right? And then the fighting goes into the legal system where your lawyer, $500 pings his lawyer or their lawyer, and it goes back and forth, and you are throwing money out when you haven't even gotten the original money. And
Correct.
it's such a common problem, but there are things we can do in a parenting plan if the situation that you're describing has happened in the I'm not finalized yet stage, or if they finalized it and they're going to take them back and get some changes made, get that change made too.
Yeah. No, 100%. And then also the response is, oh, I'll pay you the original expense. I'm not paying you your interest. You're responsible for the 25-30% interest on the credit card for 7 months, right?
Yeah.
So I guess what type of things can people expect? We've touched on a few. And what should they be fighting for to protect their children and their peace of mind? What are things that they can do?
Sure. So let's talk about the financial part because you just started with that, right?
Yeah.
They withhold money or they don't reimburse you. The first thing that we really need to define is an expense reimbursement policy. What is the policy? How are we going to get that money back? And it should outline, which portion you're both getting, but it should be, it's paid within this much time, or, it's coming by Zelle, or it's going to be deposited directly. It's all those details defined out, right? And, sometimes if we think about them, they don't pay you support, right? Or they don't pay you, they were supposed to sell the rental property and give you money. So all of these sort of money coming in sort of things, you can have something that I have in my book, and it's called the what if they don't clause. It is a non-compliance clause. It just gets added to your decree, and it actually covers both of you. If you don't comply, or they don't comply, whoever doesn't comply, and if I have to take you back to court, you're going to pay my legal fees because you didn't comply, and therefore I don't have to pay the court every time you're going to do this. Trust me, they won't pull it anymore because they don't want to pay two legal fees, right? So, narcissists are famous for, obstructing justice, if you would, right? Just not doing what they were supposed to do. But if you have that clause, feel free to take them back to court. Okay, here's your bill.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's the smartest thing to protect yourself from that financial game. But if they also, then there's legal abuse, right? If they refuse to agree to anything for your child, and teacher says they need tutoring, right? So what if we had a conflict resolution policy that says when we don't agree to things, this is what we'll do. We'll start here. We'll start with, we'll try to get along. Then we'll go to the next thing of, we'll defer to the experts. If the dentist said the kid needs braces, we will pay for braces together. If the therapist said or your teacher said the kid needs therapy, we will listen to the experts. But if that doesn't work, what happens then? Then we go to the next level. Maybe we get and name a parent coordinator. You can't fight over a parent coordinator. We'll have a parent coordinator, step in one day. Well, that's another 4 months to decide on one. So you pick one, define it in the decree, and say, okay, we're not getting along. Let's call Tracy, 123 dial. And now we have somebody in our corner that is designed, it could be a mediator too, to keep you out of court. Like, we want all of these stuff in there to stop the legal abuse, to stop the financial bleed of taking you back to court over kids wanting to go to summer camp or some small decision that doesn't need to get back to court. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And I think, just a couple things that I really want to expand on maybe is, one of them is, you have an attorney draw up this legal document, but they are not financial experts. They're not emotional or mental health experts. And I'm not knocking them. Their job is legal. Their job is not finance. Their job is not mental health. Mm-hmm. And so having these components, or having somebody who is an expert in that area review and see, is the language strong enough? Are the parameters being built? I think it's very, very important for people to be able to put it together when they do. The other thing that you said that I think is important is one of the great things that, or one of the big things that a narcissist often does is they're always wronged and they're never wrong. So you can't have a one-sided language. You can't have them held accountable on something and you can't. So whatever you do put in there, you've got to be able to live up to as well. It's usually less of an issue, but just be aware of that, because you don't want to set yourself up to be the one that now gets blamed. And then again, the kids find out, because that's what narcissists do. And, it builds from there. So just be aware of all the things that Tracy just said. I can't repeat all of them. Been trying to get some of them down, but you just had too much there. So, but I do think it's important people think about it. They work through that and they understand these parameters become very, very important, because how often has somebody thought, oh my gosh, you know what? I wish I had a way to hold that off, have a wall there. This is your wall that you can do. So
it's Tracy, a very big legal wall. It's a big legal wall.
So before we go to break, how can people get in touch with you? And I encourage them that they do. So please.
The best way is to go to my website, narcissistabusesupport.com. In the top corner, you've got all my social, you've got all the ways to contact me, all the services that I offer, and, thousands of pages of resources that they can find.
And literally thousands. So please do. I am Hirsch Serman. My website is lifecycle.financial, and we will be back just in a minute or two. Please stay with us. Hello, welcome back to WGSN-DB, the Going Solo Network. My guest today is Tracy Malone, and we are speaking about protecting our kids and our peace post-divorce. It's a very stressful situation. Going through the divorce, we certainly do not want to perpetuate that and keep it going. So just a few things, well, a lot of things that we covered, and I didn't even get them all, as I said, but Tracy was kind enough to share a little bit about her background and why she does what she does. And I love and you've got it right behind you if anyone's watching on Roku or anything, this thriver. I like that term so much. I remember thinking about it last time. But, a few things that you said, the awareness of what's going on, bringing the reality to it. And it's hard when you have that message being repeated and repeated, building the right parameters to hold somebody accountable. Having conflict resolution language in your agreement, understanding what can happen is so important, and understanding as you are less controlled, where does that need for control go? Usually to your kids, and obviously that's not healthy. Changing the way that you co-parent. You can't stick to the status quo. Having that strong NARC-proof plan is so essential. We need to get into a few more things, but I think, again, I want to just kind of say that the message that you sent earlier today, hopefully everyone is going to sign up for your newsletter, I just thought was so powerful. It encapsulated exactly what clients of mine have been thinking about. And I think it's so important that they understand they're not alone, and there are things you can do to protect yourself and to have a wonderful life, even with that on the side, right? So I think that's a little bit of what we've spoken about. We're going to go into a little bit more. We spoke a little bit about the parenting plan, some of the things to put in. Anything else when creating that NARC-proof plan, that any elements or any items that we should be including that we haven't covered in the first part of the show? Anything that you'd like to add there?
Sure. So as you know, narcissists demand their 50-50, almost pounding their chest. But then they give the kids to the babysitter or to the next girlfriend or the next boyfriend. And all of a sudden you're like, who's picking up my child at school, right? And so one of the things that is kind of overlooked and sometimes scary to people is the right of first refusal. And if they can't watch them, and you can define things like, if it's over 3 hours, ask me first. If it's an overnight, ask me first. But the thing that people get afraid of and go, I don't want first right of refusal. And their logic is probably legitimate, but at the same time, it gives you more time with your kids. But the important thing to know is that we have to also combat that with, what's the makeup time policy? Because a narcissist will use you as a babysitter. Oh, I'm going away this weekend. Why don't you watch the kids? And all of a sudden you've got them every single weekend.
Right.
And then they go, okay, I'm ready to take all that time back. I won't see you for 3 months. And you're like, but it doesn't say they can't combine all their makeup time. What are you going to do? You have to know their games in co-parenting, like that one I just described, to know I better protect myself and maybe no makeup time if this is it, or you have to give me this much lead time, or you can't combine it with other time, right? It's knowing how they can mess you up to make sure that you are, just protecting yourself and bookending everything that you possibly can, just making sure that every question is dotted and everything, okay, well, what would happen if this happens? And what's happened so far. So you have a good footprint of what could happen. So knowing that, writing it down, going, okay, well, they're not paying my bills, or they're not doing this, or they won't cooperate in this, or, okay, how do we protect that particular offense?
And I would say, as you're going through the process, think about things from the past, think about things that are happening as you're going through your divorce, because you'll see the trends and you'll see kind of the common things come through. And those are often the things that you might need to be able to put into these legal documents to be able to protect yourself. I think becomes so important. So what are some of the biggest mistakes that you see that people are making then, I guess, is the next logical question, right?
Well, I would say what again, because the narcissist's ego is involved, they just want their time, pounding their chests. They want their 50%. They want this, they want that, right? But the reality is they don't want any protection written in for the children, not financially, not anything, right? And so if you submit the first parenting plan, which is such an important strategy, they won't submit anything. So it becomes the footprint of all negotiations, whether it's in mediation or whether it gets to court. The judge is going to go, did anyone, submit something? Okay, we got this. Let's work off of this. What don't you agree with? Oh, that seems fine to me. You're going to get a lot more by coming in the door, knowing what you want, fighting for what you want, but also knowing you have to have stuff you have to give back. So you're going to ask for more than you want, and you're hopefully going to land on what is okay. You have to know your must-haves, and you have to know, I can throw that away. I'm asking for that, but I'm willing to give that one back, right? That's negotiation with a narcissist. So coming in first is absolutely essential.
I like that a lot. And you kind of setting the bar and the expectation of what the discussion is, as opposed to having to add and add and add and add, which never works with narcissists. So
no, absolutely not. And if we think about other things that we want to do, is again, with the narcissist ego pride, they want their I want joint decision making, I want joint legal custody, and they fight for that, but they don't want to do the work to actually be the person who coordinates extracurricular activities, so you can fight for final decision making. If you've got a special needs child and you are taking them to the doctor and doing everything that needs to be done, then get medical decision making. Fight for that, because that's going to make a lot of things easier, right? So if you are understanding what it is that you need, final decision making can be broken out. We can do, you're in charge of activities, you're in charge of religion, you're in charge here. It still says, you've got joint decision making, or you've got, joint legal custody, but you break out and define what that means and who's responsible for what. And then there's no question and no more fights about that particular aspect.
And I think they'll often take the path of what's easiest for them. So if you put it on the table, sure, as opposed to them having to do the work, which they don't, as you said,
They don't do. They just don't. And that's the benefit of knowing how lazy they are, right? I mean, they're sinister in their mind, but they are lazy fundamentally, especially when thinking of others.
And they'll tell you how busy they are, right? They'll tell you they are wrapped up in the kids and they wrapped up in work and they wrapped up in whatever else it is. But the truth is they're not so wrapped up is really the bottom line. So something I'm excited to bring up is your focus on co-parenting in your master classes that you've created. And you've got a program that's coming out, or I think it might have just come out. I don't remember if you've actually launched it, but I think you have. So I'm going to ask, can you share a little bit more about this program and who can benefit?
Sure. So this is a new leg of the Tracy world. And I have a new website that goes with it. It's called parentingplans.org. And it is a education website, just like my Narcissist site has thousands of pages of education. So does this one for parenting plans. What do we do when the kid's only 3 years old? Or should parenting time be this when my kid is only 6 months old? Or how do we handle guns in the house? Should we have rules? I'm afraid my ex is going to leave the guns all over when the kids are there. I have all of those answers. And then there's the course, and the course is amazing. It took me 3 years to write it. And I swear it should be like in law school for lawyers and mediators to learn how to do this, because it's for anybody. And it's everything. There's 52 lessons, and each one has a video and worksheets. And it's not just about, like, I actually pulled one out. This happens to be legal custody, but I also have, this one is 17 pages of clauses of what legal custody should look like. So it's not only what it is, because, okay, we want joint legal custody, fine. Well, let's define it. Right. And this clause page shows you, like, I have seen parenting plans that just say both parents will share joint legal custody. End of sentence. Both. Next. And it doesn't define it, which when you are with a narcissist, all of a sudden they're going, well, it doesn't say I have to pay for braces. It doesn't say that and so you define what legal custody means. And these sample clauses show you really good examples going, this includes this, and we're going to make decisions about all these categories. And here's what it means, so that when you have that like little tiny decision, you go, it says we cover that. We know what we're going to discuss and how we'll resolute it.
And I love that, because not in every part of the legal documents, but many parts of the legal documents are kind of a template that a lot of people just reuse, and then they try to tweak it a little bit. But if you're not on top of it, and obviously you know more about your situation than your attorney does, so again, you need to educate your attorney sometimes. Having those kind of resources, having suggestions, but they true and tried suggestions at your fingertips, that you can look through 17 pages and pick out the 6 clauses that you think are so important and say to your attorney, these need to be in there. That's amazing, to have that at your fingertips and be able to really understand my journey. My divorce is a very personal experience. Yes, people live next door. They have a similar house, similar car, whatever it is. They really have a very different divorce because they have different maybe incomes, they have different distribution of income, they have different priorities, they have whatever it is. Their divorce may on the outside look similar, but it's probably not. And really having something that you can custom make and tailor make for yourself in this way, I think becomes so, so important. And again, you're working with somebody that this is their expertise, as opposed to somebody who, well, I know a little bit about it because I run into it through my work, but my expertise is the legal side, not this. I think those resources are just invaluable for somebody to have as they go through.
And we're talking about divorce with a narcissist. So when you are comparing you and the neighbor, they're not going through with a divorce with a narcissist. They are not going to be challenged. They are not going to be tortured. They're not going to be stalked. They are not going to be denied the money that they need to put food on the table for their children. They're not going to have to fight over braces or taking the kid to a doctor. Right. They are going to have a normal life, and they'll both go to parent-teacher conferences and everything will be fine. With a narcissist, it is a war zone. And you know it now because you've been living it. But you think that's the mistake. They think it's going to go away. They think, okay, well, we'll make it all this, get this over with. That's what I see as the biggest mistake. People spend more money on their wedding dress that they wore for 4 hours than they're going to spend on figuring out the 18 years of their children's life, right? Asking a lawyer to explain to you all of the possibilities at $500 an hour. I was doing 70 hours a week for the last 3 years to get you all this information. That's $1 billion as what a lawyer would charge you to educate you, right? Even if they took 3 hours to educate you, you wouldn't get what you're going to get by learning and being empowered to know, oh my God, I can ask for that. That would change my life, right? If you don't know what to ask for, your lawyer also is not a co-parenting expert. They don't know what happens post-divorce, only if you land back in their lap with another lawsuit, right? They know how to do divorces, how to write up the clauses. That's why I didn't write them up in my course. I said, here's thousands of pages of samples. Have your lawyer write it up for Chicago. Have them write it up for Nebraska. Everyone's different. So you take your knowledge and you, it's parenting plans, Cece. You take all of your requests and you get them in to protect you.
I think that is something as you said, it should be taught in law schools. I think it is that important. Tracy, we do unfortunately have to wrap up. I know that you could spend the whole day here talking about all these things, but again, how can people get in touch with you and reach out to you?
Well, let's send them to narcissistabusesupport.com. But also, if you are interested in this parenting plan topic, go to parentingplans.org. Just read the blogs, read the information, get that much education to set you up so that you know what to ask for, or at least ask your lawyer, hey, what's this conflict resolution policy I read about? Right. You'll understand it. And maybe the course is there for you and it's there if you need it.
And it is important that you take control of your divorce. You can't throw it over the fence to an attorney. They're dealing with 40 or 50 other people at the same time. So it is important that you bring these things to their attention. They're not always going to bring it to yours. They are busy and they are dealing with a lot of people. And I want to appreciate you shedding the light that you have, because this is a topic where I think people often just get steamrolled. They've lost their voice. They don't know where to turn. They don't have resources. Now they do. Clearly now they do. And an amazing one. You and I have known each other for a few years already, and you've grown and grown your resources for people. So that's wonderful. I am Hirsch Serman, your host for the Financial Wellness Hour. Please reach out to me through my website, which is lifecycle.financial. That's lifecycle.financial. And you can reach out for me or for Tracy. Always thank you, Cece Schatz, my producer, for making the magic happen and make it so easy for me to do what I do. And I do want to end with something which I think is very relevant, especially for people dealing with narcissists. It's something I heard about right around a year ago, and it's called the broken vase theory. And it's the idea, I have shared it once before on the show, but I think it's worth repeating. The idea is, imagine you had this incredibly expensive, valuable vase, and your dog runs and knocks it over and it breaks into all these shards, right? And there's really three things you can do. You can try to put it back together. You're going to see all the cracks and everything. You can try to throw it out, or you can throw it out, I guess. Or you can take this beautiful vase and the shards of this vase and create a new mosaic. And that, I think, is something that really represents what you can do when you go through a divorce. I can try to kind of replicate my life, although it won't be the same. I can pretend my life never happened and throw out the pieces, or I can really use this as an opportunity to take what I've learned. I'm a divorcee. I went into this world. Tracy is a divorcee, went into her world. Cece has the same, you can really try to take what you've learned and the pieces and create this beautiful new life. And sometimes you are broken when you've been dealing with a narcissist for so many years. And now you don't have to be broken. You can really take those pieces, create something beautiful going forward. So I did want to end on that. I thought it was very relevant for what we've been speaking about. So everyone have an amazing week, and we will see you in 2 more weeks. Thank you for joining us.